Hello, hello. Welcome to Module 12. Welcome to Life Foundation. My name is, well, shit, it's not even Life Foundation. I don't know, I got multiple businesses going on these days. This is Life Magic, y'all. Welcome to Life Magic. My name is Nathan Barna. I will be your journey guide today. So this is Module 12, and Module 12 is all about optimizing your sleep. So if you want to learn how to sleep like a baby, actually, I think that's kind of a bad analogy. Babies really don't sleep that well, do they? I wouldn't know yet. I don't have a kid. If you want to learn how to sleep like a king, there we go. Sleep like a king. Sleep straight through the night. Fall asleep fast. Wake up feeling amazing. And stick around. This is going to be for you. So, a little background here. I used to have pretty bad insomnia where every night I would be frustrated. Not even that, I wouldn't even look forward to going to bed because I would be so tired, and then I knew that as soon as I laid down, I just would be wide awake and I wouldn't be able to fall asleep, and it would take me hours and hours. I know some people have a hard time falling asleep, but then they fall asleep and they sleep through the night. And then other people have a hard time staying asleep. They'll fall asleep and then they'll wake back up, and then their sleep is broken. Some people have challenges with both. For me personally, I just had a very hard time falling asleep every night. And I remember laying in my bed one night and just looking up at the ceiling, and you kind of get that like hot sweat, or at least me, I kind of like get that hot sweat to where you're like frustrated, you're kind of like angry because you can't fall asleep. And you know that being angry isn't going to help you fall asleep anymore, but still you're there because you're like, damn it, I just want to fall asleep. I want to get some rest so I feel refreshed in the morning, but it's just not happening. And you try counting the sheep, and you try breathing, and you try all these different things, and then you're just still just laying there. And you're getting all hot and like sweaty because you can't wind yourself down. So I remember laying there and I was like, man, something's got to change. I've got to figure this out. I know that there's something I'm missing here that is going to help me fall asleep. And so during that time, I started studying Elliot Hulse, and then Elliot Hulse led me to Paul Chek. And Paul Chek, when I was studying Paul Chek, that's when I really started to make sense of all of these different elements. Like, why was I having so much trouble falling asleep? And I realized that it wasn't just one thing. I had tried, the blackout curtains. I had tried, different sound things. I tried putting earplugs in, putting eye mask on, all these different things that were supposed to help. I tried melatonin that were supposed to help, and maybe they would give me maybe a temporary relief, but then I'd find myself back in the same place. But through studying Paul Chek, I ultimately learned that this had to be approached from a holistic way. You had to look at all of these different things because your body is very intelligent. And a lot of times I think we take that for granted because we try to either mimic things or we try to go against our own nature. And we ultimately find ourselves creating more pain and discomfort for ourselves because we're putting ourselves out of balance. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, because sleep, just like you're awake during the day, you're doing things, you're maybe working out, you're working, there's a lot of activity during the day. The night is meant to be the opposite of that. The day is masculine, it's that kind of yang energy, go out and do shit. And then the nighttime, that is the feminine, that is the yin, that is the restorative. And just that same cycle, call it a circadian rhythm, one kind of full day cycle of day and night. That's a kind of a macro cycle within a bigger macro cycle of like the seasons and the month, even like the lunar cycle, and then the year cycle. And then even there's micro cycles that happen during the day, little ups and downs during the day. Like you might, have a active morning, but then there's a little rest, and then it's up, and then it's down. So if you pay attention, there's all of these different cycles that are going on. And so much of this work is about being able to align to those cycles. And that's really one of the big breakthroughs that I had. I started to see all of these different cycles, and it was really just creating this balance, creating this functional homeostasis, this balance between the yin and the yang, the day and the night, the hot and the cold, the wet and the dry, the masculine, the feminine, the light and the dark. It's all over the place. The complementary opposites that allow this whole experience to be possible. Okay? So I wanted to lead with that because that's going to provide the foundation. I want to give you like actual practical things that have helped me and that have helped the clients that I've worked with, so that you can, if you're struggling to get the quality sleep that you want at night, this is going to help you if you follow these principles and if you practice these things. So the first step, which I've already discussed, is aligning to the rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is the rhythm of the day and the night. And our bodies, you know, if you just think about back evolutionary terms, if you think in evolutionary terms, we have evolved with nature. It's only been, you know, I've got these bright ass lights shining at me to make this video look better, but it's only been relatively recently that we've had the invention of having these lights that are able to light up our world, light up our life 24/7. You know, it's something that we take for granted now. You just walk into a room and flip a light switch, and what was dark is now there's light everywhere. But before, it was everything was centered around the sun. The sun was your light for the day, and then maybe you had some fire. But even fire is still relatively newer on the evolutionary scale, especially like harnessing fire to use to our benefit. But either way, our systems, our physiology, our bodies have attuned to the cycle of nature. And so the way that our hormones fluctuate throughout the day, the way that different processes happen throughout our body, all of that is built on the foundation of being in tune with the rhythms in nature. Have you ever noticed that when it gets like into the fall and into the winter and the days get shorter and the nights get longer, I guess depending on where you live, the nights get longer, that you just naturally, you feel just more tired and like you just don't really want to do anything. And, you know, paradoxically, at least in America, we push ourselves even harder towards the end of the year. So we're like, oh, we got to meet deadlines. We got to get all these things done before the new year. And we're giving ourselves these mixed signals of, oh, we got to go on one end, but everything else in our nature and our physiology is like, no, I want to slow down. I want to rest. I want to enjoy my family. I just want to be. Whereas in the summertime, the days are longer, the nights are shorter. I know for me, like I wake up at like 4 or 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this thing. And I can go for 12, 16 hours. And then I'm like, all right, I'll get some sleep and I'm ready to go again. But as soon as the fall starts to hit, it's like everything in me just wants to slow down. And the times that I've kind of had that, they call it seasonal affective disorder, or just honestly just felt depressed, the times that I've gone through that are the times that I try to go against my natural rhythms. If my body feels like it wants to start slowing down and I still try to speed everything up and keep going as fast as I did during the summertime, that's when I run into challenges. And so I've learned to align myself to those rhythms. And honestly, that, and which is why I started out with this, if you just have that key, if you just have that piece, that in itself will take you a long ways. Just aligning yourself. And so practically, ideally you want to go to bed like no later than 10:30. And really, I'd even say, you know, like 9:30, 10. And you want to wake up around 6:30, no later than 6:30. That is kind of an optimal time. So between 10 and 2, 10 p.m., 2 a.m. is when most of your physical repair happens. And then between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. is when most of your like psychological, mental, emotional, nervous system, that kind of repair happens. So if you are staying up real late, you might start to miss that window. And this is why, if you've ever experienced, like if you go to bed at midnight or 1 in the morning, even if you get 8 hours of sleep, even if you sleep until, 8, 9 o'clock, you're still tired. You still feel like you didn't get the quality of rest that you could have, if versus the times that you've gone to bed at like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock and you woke up at 5 or 6. It's a totally different quality of sleep, and that has to do with those rhythms. But the problem is, if you go so long throwing yourself out of those rhythms, there's this adjustment period of trying to get back on. And honestly, one of the best things that has helped me in this area is creating a non-negotiable wake up time for myself. So regardless of what time I go to bed, I set a certain time that I'm going to wake up every single day, even on the weekends. Because what this does is, one, it holds me accountable, because if I know, like, okay, I'm setting myself to wake up at 4:30 every morning. And so if I find myself like staying up late, then I know I'm cutting into my sleep because I know I'm choosing to wake up at that time. And yes, it takes a little bit of discipline, because you have to just be able to get yourself up. And that's a whole other, might be another video, but that's a skill that I have developed, of just having the willpower to turn into a habit of just jumping out of bed in the morning. It's like, oh, okay, let's go. And I also take a cold shower, and that helps me too. But either way, when you have that non-negotiable wake up time, that helps you be more accountable, but also kind of resets your clock every day, because a lot of optimizing your bedtime has to do with, just like the rhythms, there's a lot to do with rituals. So you want to, if you can help it, have a set time when you go to bed and when you wake up. Because if you can set that time, your body will start to get accustomed to that. And then every time when it's that time that you normally go to bed, you're going to start getting tired, because your body's like, oh, this is time for me to go to bed. Every time that it's time to wake up, your body's naturally going to want to start waking up, because that's normally the time that you wake up. All right. And in the morning, like for instance, it's almost winter here now, and days are shorter, nights are longer. So when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I still got like 3 hours of darkness before light starts to come out. So this is where you can use different tools. Like you can use like some red lights, or you can use, they have different lights. I'm honestly not that familiar with all the different options. I haven't experimented a lot. I haven't really needed to. But they do have different lighting options that you can research that kind of mimic sunlight that you can use in your house or your study area, whatever your morning ritual is, that can help you wake up, because that light, once it hits your eyes, hits your skin, is going to kind of give a signal like, hey, it's daylight. The other thing that helps out too in the morning is movement. So maybe going for a little walk, or I like to go outside even in the wintertime and I do a Tai Chi practice. So that little bit of movement also helps to set the rhythm. The third thing that helps to set the rhythm, and this is really helpful if you ever travel and you need to like reset your rhythm to the clock of wherever you're at, is food. So you've got movement, light, and food. Those are kind of three natural, easy stimuli, things that you can do to give your body the signal like, hey, it's time to wake up, it's time to be up. And so you can very easily reset your circadian rhythm just by utilizing those different things, just as a rule of thumb. But going along with the set sleep and then wake up time is having rituals before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning. Because honestly, your sleep really starts in the morning. Like how well that you're going to sleep that night starts with the actions that you take in the morning. And so if you wake up when you say you're going to wake up, and then you have your morning ritual, and again, in my experience, like, yes, there's things that are better than others, but it really doesn't matter that much as long as it's something that is consistent. So for me personally, I wake up, I take a cold shower, and then I go outside and I do my Tai Chi practice for 20 minutes. And then I come back inside, and then I do a little bit of I do my tarot readings, like kind of do some affirmations, just my own personal time. I do a little like spiritual studying, and then I kind of get going and start getting into work. And that process sometimes takes me 2 hours, and that's my personal time that I block out for myself. My doctor quiet time, my doctor happy time. That's my personal time that I guard. And when you have that, even on times where I have to be somewhere early, I will wake up earlier instead of cutting into that time, because it's that important to me. Because I've tried cutting into that time, and it honestly, it tends to throw off the rest of my day. The rest of my day is a little bit off because I didn't create that foundation in the morning. So you can kind of see these cycles coming back around again. So if you can set yourself up in the morning with a routine, and again, it could even be like 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. This is personal to you and what's going to work best for you. But it has to be consistent. That's the important part. Whatever it is, make it consistent. And if you can, try to at least get some water in you first thing, and avoid any kind of stimulants first thing. Give yourself a little bit of time, because all of these things are going to help you so that when it comes to the nighttime, you are ready to wind down and you are ready for sleep. Okay, and then having your nighttime ritual. For me, it is I come home and I do Ramwad, or it's called pliability now, but it's basically like this stretching yoga routine. And even with that, especially lately, just because I've been working a lot, I'll start falling asleep just doing that. And I know, like, all right, I'm ready to go to bed. And then I'll do that, and then I will read. And usually reading puts me right to sleep. I'll read. Sometimes I won't even get a sentence through, and my book's on my face, and I'm done. And that's usually, like, I've been doing that so consistently where it's just like, it's automatic. It's like, I know, okay, I do that. I set myself up during the day. And then I do that, and then I'm sleeping. And the other aspect of this is paying attention to your food. It's another important part. We talked about food a little bit, but the things that you're eating, especially when it gets close to like the last 4 hours before bedtime, what you're eating then becomes very important, because if you're eating, especially like a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, that is going to spike your insulin. And actually, I learned this, insulin is antagonistic to melatonin. So if you had an insulin spike because your blood sugar is high, then that's actually disrupting your body's production of the melatonin, which is what helps you to fall asleep and stay asleep. And so you don't want to eat a lot of sugar before bed. You don't want to eat a lot of carbs before bed. And ideally, if you can help it, give yourself a 2-hour window from your last meal to when you go to bed. I don't always do this, but when I feel my best, that is what I'm doing. I'm eating at least 2 hours before I go to bed, or I'm not eating within 2 hours before bedtime. And the other part of this is paying attention to your cortisol, which, you're not going to actually measure your cortisol, but anything that's going to give stress to the system. So like if you go and do a heavy workout and you drink pre-workout right before you go to the gym and it's like 5 o'clock, caffeine has a 6-hour half-life. So if you drink a 300 milligram energy drink, and that's at like 5 o'clock, by the time you get to 11 o'clock, you've still got 150 milligrams of caffeine running through you. By the time you get into the middle of the night, that'd be what, 5 in the morning, you get 5 in the morning, you've still got 75 milligrams of caffeine in you. And then you wake up and you didn't sleep well, so then you're tired, so then you want to grab some more caffeine, and then you start the cycle all over again. So caffeine's a tough one. And for me personally, I find, and I kind of connect with my soul on these things, and there's a process, like if you stick around or take some of my deeper trainings, we get into that stuff. And actually, if you have any questions about this anyway, like if you want more personalized questions answered, check the description, because on Tuesdays, almost Tuesdays, I go live and I do like a Q&A on Tuesday. So that'd be a time to get questions answered. But either way, on some of my deeper trainings, I teach how to connect with the soul. But that's a process that I go through when it comes to like the types of food that I'm eating, like if I should eat that food or if I shouldn't, but also like caffeine consumption. And I find that the days that I'm actually tired are the days where my body, my soul is like, no, don't do any caffeine today. But the days that I'm actually like, I feel rested, those are the days where it's like, oh, fuck yeah, we'll do some caffeine, we'll do some coffee or espresso, whatever that might be. And it just gives me an extra little bump, and it's fun. It's cool, but it's like not something I need. But I used to be like really addicted to caffeine. I couldn't even work out without pre-workout. I remember a few times like I ran out of pre-workout and I just didn't work out, because it's like, man, I don't know what to do without this extra stimulation, because you need the pre-workout, you need the caffeine just to feel normal again. So that can be a challenging cycle to get into break. So I wanted to bring that up. All right. So another key to this is meditation. So being able to become aware of the thoughts that are going through your mind, because one, it's just helpful to have that skill, so throughout the day you can see what kind of stories that are rolling through, because most of the stress that we experience, honestly, is shit that we create for ourselves by the way that we interpret the events that are happening in our lives, okay? And the meaning that we give to things and the things that we choose to focus on. But a lot of times, if you're not aware of the meaning that you're giving to things, the stories that are running, the ways that you are reacting to things in your life, if you're not aware of any of that, if you're not aware of what you're focusing on, then a lot of it, because we're hardwired for survival, a lot of it is just going to go in the tendency of the negative. And so all these things that create more and more stress. I mean, how many times like your whole day just seems like a string of problems, and all you're focusing on is problems? Or if you know somebody that's like, every time you talk to them, it's like all they do is tell you about all their problems. It seems like nothing's ever going right. in their lives, because that's all they're choosing to focus on. That's all you're choosing to focus on. And so that's what you keep getting more and more and more of. So the process of meditation helps you so that you can see, you can witness what is going on in your internal reality, which then ultimately gets mirrored out into your external reality. And then at a practical level, like when you're trying to fall asleep, that's another time where the meditation comes in handy, because one, it helps you wind down. So when I first really got into this, I started meditating. Like one of the first things that like really helped me out was I would meditate 10 minutes before bed every night. And that in itself, it wasn't like the cure-all, but that was one of the biggest impacts that I noticed in helping me to fall asleep. So I started doing that. So that in itself will help. But then, like I said, the witnessing aspect, this growing your awareness, is what helps throughout the whole duration of the day, like throughout the whole process. So meditation also, when you are like falling asleep, if you can get into that meditative state, if you can, another practice is like counting your breaths and just focusing on taking real deep breaths. Because that's another thing. If your breathing isn't optimized, then if you're like doing stress breathing all day, as I call, you're just shallow breathing into the chest, which then like excites your sympathetic nervous system, which is like your fight or flight, which then, you know, creates this whole cascade of things. And ultimately you're just stressed out and anxious or whatever you might be experiencing, which is just more stress on the system. Then that too is going to dip into your quality of sleep and the quantity of sleep that you're getting. So I could keep obviously going on and on. Like there's a couple more things I want to mention. So like the environment in itself. So obviously, yes, like stuff that most people are already aware of. Like make sure your room is as dark as possible. Make sure it's as cool as you can tolerate it. That usually helps out most people. Like when it's hot, it's hard to fall asleep. So cooling things down and turning off, like put your phone on airplane mode, turn off your Wi-Fi or get some biogeometry installed. If you don't know what that is, look up biogeometry. Dr. Abraham Karim is a whole science of being able to harmonize different energies. There's all of these things, like all that they fundamentally come down to, and just like the basic principle of this is stress and adding additional stress to the system. That's why anything that you can do to either A, mitigate or minimize unnecessary stress, and then B, give yourself the tools and the resources to be able to manage and handle stress in your life. Because stress isn't bad. It's just a matter of creating balance. If all day it's just stress, and then you're all of a sudden you're like, all right, let me try to fall asleep. Your body's still running, and it doesn't want to wind down, because it's like, you know, if you imagine if you were getting chased by a lion as a metaphor, then you're not going to try to fall asleep. You're getting chased by a lion. Or most of us, we don't even realize it, but that's how we're living day to day. Just the constant, our thoughts that we're having, like stinking thinking, all of the energies that we're interacting with, from our phones to the Wi-Fi to the cell towers, to like all these different things are literally like buzzing our systems and like speeding everything up, which then it creates a stress response, which then again is going to dip into the sleep. So again, I can go on and on about all of these different things, but really I hope I've given you like some of the practical basis of it. But I ultimately want you to understand the principles, because if you understand the principles just like me, like once I understood the principle of it, I could see how all of these different things were playing out in all of these different areas of my life, and I could make those adjustments as needed. You know, and that was ultimately what helped me. It wasn't just like one thing. It was a culmination of all of these different things, from aligning to my rhythms to creating the rituals, to setting up, set bedtime, set wake up time, to optimizing my environment, to optimizing my diet, to doing meditation, optimizing my ability to control my thoughts and emotions. And even, I will add one more thing here. If you have trouble waking up in the middle of the night, you find yourself waking up and you're like, you like kind of stressed out. A lot of times that is indicative, that indicates that you have like a fungal or parasite infection. And fungus and parasites, not something to be scared of. There's more bacteria, fungus, and parasites in and on our body than actual human cells. It's just when there's an imbalance. And there's an imbalance whenever your vitality starts to drop. So if you think of your vitality on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 is the best that it could possibly be. You're as healthy and vital and aligned energetically as you could possibly be. And then basically 3, you're dead. 0, or 1, you're like decaying into the ground. Anytime you drop below a 7 on that vitality scale, you open the door for fungus and parasite infections, because their job is to break you back down. That's what they do in nature. They break things down to put them back in the earth so that they become nutrients and they become the resources for new life. So it's just part of the life cycle. They're just doing their job. You know, Paul Chek calls them, it's nature's police, because they're just coming in. They're like, yo, you're fucking up. Your vitality is dropping. And so diet has a big impact on that, because obviously diet can be a big source of stress, but just overall stress in general, the way you're managing your thoughts and your emotions, even spiritual stress, like not being aligned to your purpose, can be a stress on the system that can open the door, decrease your vitality, open the door for fungus and parasite infections. And their clock is opposite than ours. So like midnight for them is like noon for us. Midnight for us is like noon for them. So they're most active when we're trying to sleep. And what they do is, they basically just trying to live like anything else. So they're kind of feeding off of us. They're feeding off the foods and the undigested things that we've eaten. And then ultimately they secrete a lot of, called mycotoxins. They secrete a lot of toxins into the body, which then creates this immune response. So it activates your immune system, which is then just more stress on the system. That's all you got to know. It's just more stress on the system. And so because they're active in the middle of the night, there's this stress response happening while you're sleeping, and then your cortisol spikes up, and then boom, now you're awake and you have a hard time falling back asleep. So the reason why you might be waking up a lot, and especially if you have to pee a lot during the night, that might be indicative of like you got some prostate things going on, which the fungus like to target the prostate, especially men. So that could be another reason why. So all of these things, it all comes back down to the balance. And I hope that is what you've gotten and taken away from all of this. So like I said, if you have any specific questions, like these modules are ultimately, they're a part of this bigger year-long course. And so, what I talk about here actually builds off of all of the other modules. So I invite you to go back to module 1 and watch them all in sequence, because then you'll get the information you need to continue to build off of the other ones to get you to here, which will then continue to build, okay? But if you have any specific questions, you have specific questions you want answered, go to my Instagram, follow me on Instagram. And by the way, if you got value out of this, like share it and like it. Really just share it. Like other people need to hear this. I mean, yes, I want more subscribers and stuff like that, but ultimately other people need to hear this. So share it, please. That would mean the world to me. So share this, and then go follow me on Instagram every Tuesday at 6:30, give or take a half hour sometimes. Every Tuesday I go live, okay? And I do a Q&A, or I have a topic that I want to get into, but also opens up the floor for a Q&A. So if you have any specific questions, that's where you go, and I look forward to sharing more with you again soon. Hope this was helpful. And again, if you found this helpful, I would love it if you could share it with your friends, share it with somebody that you might be struggling with sleep, somebody that you think would benefit from this. And as always, my name is Nathan Barna. I look forward to sharing more with you again soon. And remember, if anything else, the journey is the way. Peace, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I love you.